What about pockets? Inside pockets? Okay, to take it in. Ah. Welcome to Business Insights, your go-to program for the latest update and analysis in the world of business. I am your host, Olaoluwa Awe, and we start with the latest update and developments from the world of commerce and finance, from market trends to corporate announcements. Stay informed to get the ever-changing information on the landscape of business. Now, a new report on fraud and forgeries in the Nigerian banking system shows that fraudulent activities in Africa's largest economy has made a significant improvement in fraud prevention, as it records a loss of 472 million naira during the first quarter of 2023. This amount reflects a significant decrease from the 3.18 billion naira reported in the fourth quarter of 2022, representing an 85% loss reduction. According to the report, while the prevailing incident of fraud remains a significant concern, there has been a decrease in the recorded cases of fraud. A further breakdown of the report shows that fraud activities were performed using a range of channels, including ATMs, web and mobile banking platforms, including the USSD and the eNaira channel, bank branches and points of sale POS terminals. However, there was a decrease across all channels of fraud except for POS fraud. The ATM channel recorded a 38.61% decrease from 404 cases in the fourth quarter of 2022 to 248 cases in the first quarter of 2023. Similarly, mobile apps recorded a 9.78% and web channels recorded 17.81% decrease in the number of fraud cases. On the other hand, POS fraud increased by 19.51% in the first quarter of 2023, bringing the figures to 1,985 cases from 1,661 cases in the previous quarter. For the amount lost by the payment channel, the analysis shows that there was an increase in the amount lost to fraud for the ATM channel and bank branch channels. The amount lost via the ATM channel increased from 949 million naira to 1.6 billion naira, that's 68.51%, while the amount lost in bank branch increased by 43.83% from 119.95 million naira to 172.56 million naira. On the other hand, the amount lost via the web channel decreased by 95.38%, with a value of 30.8 million from 2.83 billion naira in the previous quarter. Similarly, fraud via mobile apps decreased by 15.76%, and POS fraud channels saw a 43.86% decrease. The recent acquisition of shares in First Bank of Nigeria by an entity associated with Obao Otudeco has sparked a power struggle among major shareholders of the bank. Otudeco's acquisition of 13.3% stake in the bank has made him the largest equity holder, causing concern among other shareholders who fear he will seek to enthrone a board representative of shareholder interests rather than that of the suspended governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele. The former board of First Bank was sacked by Emefiele after refusing to extend the tenure of CEO Adesola Adedotunton for an unusual third term. Otudeco's return to the bank means the CEO's position and those of members of the current board are no longer tenable. Meanwhile, FBNH's share price has nearly doubled in the past year, marking a remarkable turnaround for the bank after a turbulent 2016. The bank's bad loan ratio has improved under the leadership of Adedunton, falling to 5.6% in 2022 from a record 45% in 2015. The company's profits before tax jumped more than 10 times to 147.3 billion naira in 2022 from 10.2 billion naira in 2015. Billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk launched his highly anticipated artificial intelligence startup xAI, which aims to challenge big US technology firms in the development of an alternative to ChatGPT. The team at xAI includes engineers from Google, Microsoft, and other major tech companies. Musk, who is already the CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, and owner of Twitter, has expressed concerns about the potential for AI to cause civilization destruction and has called for regulation in the sector. xAI's approach to creating a safer AI involves building a maximally curious AI rather than explicitly programming morality into it. Musk predicts the superintelligence or AI that is smarter than humans will arrive in 5 or 6 years. xAI is separate from Musk's X-Core but will work closely with Twitter, Tesla, and other companies. The startup is recruiting experienced engineers and researchers in the San Francisco Bay Area. Similarly, the Indian government is demonstrating its commitment to green gas emission economic development by engaging in discussions with American automobile manufacturing company Tesla regarding an investment proposal to establish a factory in India with an annual capacity of approximately 500,000 electric vehicles (EVs), according to government sources. During a recent meeting, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi charged Tesla's chief executive officer Elon Musk to make the investment a transformative and sizable one, noting that the government is not only looking to cater to the Indian market, but also considering India as a strategic export base for supplying cars to the Indo-Pacific region. While the starting price for Tesla's vehicles in India is reported to be around 2 million rupees, 24,400.6 US dollars, which is higher than the country's cheapest electric vehicle, the MG Comet, and the popular Tata Nexon EV, the Indian government is keen on attracting Tesla's investment and manufacturing capabilities. Last year, import tax reductions were not granted, hampering Tesla's plans. However, the government's preference for local manufacturing was addressed by Tesla's proposal to initially export cars to assess demand. American singer Taylor Swift's Eras Tour has caught the attention of the U.S. Federal Reserve due to its significant impact on local economies. The tour consists of 131 concerts across 17 states and 5 continents. The Common Sense Institute suggests that the entirety of Taylor Swift's U.S. tour could generate a staggering $4.6 billion in total consumer spending, surpassing the GDP of 35 countries. The tour has attracted hundreds of thousands of Taylor Swift fans to cities across the country, boosting hotels' revenues significantly, particularly in Philadelphia. According to the Fed's most recent Beach Book, the month of May saw the strongest month for hotel revenue in Philadelphia since the onset of the pandemic, largely attributed to the influx of guests for the Taylor Swift concert. This weekend, the tour will reach Denver, Colorado, and it is estimated that the concert will generate $140 million US for the state's gross domestic product, according to the Common Sense Institute. The city expects approximately 75,000 Swift fans to attend each of the 2 sold-out concerts, with the potential for over $200 million in direct consumer spending. PepsiCo Inc. has revised its annual revenue and profit forecast upward for the second time, reflecting strong demand for its snacks and beverages and the implementation of price increases. The company's shares saw a 2% increase in pre-market trading following the release of its better-than-expected second quarter results. During the second quarter, PepsiCo saw its average prices rise by 15%, while organic volume experienced a slight decline of 2.5%. Nielsen IQ's data revealed that the average price of a 192-ounce bottle of PepsiCo soda in the U.S. increased from $7.57 in 2021 to $8.68 in 2022, reaching $9.83 as of June 2023. In response to rising costs caused by factors such as commodity price increases and supply chain disruptions during the pandemic, packaged food companies have raised their prices over in the past 2 years. Despite the challenges of higher interest rates and food prices impacting non-essential spending, U.S. consumers have continued to purchase sodas and snacks from PepsiCo, and its competitor, Coca-Cola PepsiCo's net revenue for the second quarter reached $22.32 billion, exceeding analysts' average estimate of $21.73 billion, according to Refinitiv data. The company's positive financial performance reflects its ability to navigate the challenging market conditions and leverage price adjustments to maintain strong profitability. Looking ahead, PepsiCo expects its revenue to rise by 10% in 2023, surpassing its previous forecast of an 8% increase. Additionally, the company estimates its annual core earnings per share to reach $7.47, up from the earlier expectation of $7.27. And that's the end of the news update on Business Insight. Moving over to market trends now. The Nigerian Stock Exchange, NGX, on the 13th of July 2023 witnessed a significant amount of trading activities, with a total of 798 million shares traded in 10,296 transactions, which had a total value of 10.4 billion naira. This means that compared to the previous trading day, there was a decrease of 31% in the number of shares traded, an 18% decrease in the overall value of trades, and a 26% decrease in the number of transactions. Currently, the total market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange is valued at 34.2 trillion naira. Out of the 116 companies listed on the NGX, 19 companies saw their share prices increase, while 57 companies experienced a decrease in their share prices. Among the gainers, John Holt had the highest increase, with a 10% rise in share price, closing at 1.65 naira per share. Other top gainers included Dangote Sugar Refinery, 9.94%, National Salt Company, 9.91%, and Skyway Aviation Handling Co., 9.8%. On the losing side, Stanbic IBTC Holdings had the biggest decrease, with a 10% drop in share price, closing at 61.20 naira per share. Other companies that experienced losses include Transcorp Hotels 10%, Fidelity Bank 10%, and Wema Bank 10%. In terms of trading volume, United Bank for Africa (UBA) had the highest number of shares traded, with 99 million shares changing hands. This was followed by FBN Holdings 72.7 million shares, Transcorp Nigeria 68.8 million shares, and FCMB Group 67.9 million shares. And still in Africa, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange JSE trading session closed with a total of 243 million shares, changing hands in 328,994 transactions. The total value of these trades amounted to 19.5 billion rands compared to the previous day. There was a 4% increase in the number of shares traded, a 12% increase in the overall value of the trades, and a 14% increase in the number of transactions. The total market capitalization of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange stands at 20.1 trillion rands, and representing the combined value of all the listed companies on the exchange. Similarly, in the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange ZSE, there was moderate trading activity. A total of 2 million shares were traded, with a corresponding market value of 1.9 billion Zimbabwean shillings. Compared to the previous trading day, there was a 27% decrease in the number of shares traded. However, there was a significant 73% improvement in the overall value of the trades. The current market capitalization of the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange is 11.2 trillion Zimbabwean shillings, and this represents the total combined value of all the listed companies on the exchange. Moving away from Africa to the U.S. Stock Exchange, the Nasdaq 100 Index, also known as NDX, which is a measure of the performance of the top 100 non-financial companies listed on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange current index is valued at 15,508.45 points, which increased by 201.22 points or 1.31% compared to the previous period. This means that the overall value of the stocks included in the index has gone up, indicating positive growth in the technology and other non-financial sector represented by these companies. Now to S&P 500 index, also known as INX, in a widely followed stock market index that represents the performance of 500 large publicly traded companies in the United States. It is currently valued at an index of 4,496.52, showing an increase of 24.36 points or 0.5% compared to the previous period. This indicates that the overall value of the stocks included in the index has gone up, suggesting positive growth in the broader U.S. stock market. Now let's switch gears to the European stocks, where MDAX index, a stock market index that tracks the performance of 60 major German companies listed on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, which are not part of the DAX index. Well, the current value of the MDAX index is 27,996.28, showing an increase of 44.46 points or 0.16% compared to the previous period. This indicates a slight positive growth in the value of the stocks included in the index. Lastly, in stocks, the FTSE 100 index, which is stock market index that represents the performance of the 100 largest companies listed on the London Stock Exchange. The current value of the FTSE 100 index is 7,440.21, showing an increase of 24.10 points or 0.32% compared to the previous period. And this indicates a positive growth in the overall value of the stocks included in the index, suggesting a favorable performance of the major companies in the UK stock market. Now, let's take a look at the commodities market. Currently, the price of gold is $1,958.84 US per troy ounce, while silver is priced at $24.58 US per troy ounce. In the energy sector, Brent crude is being sold at $80.36 US per barrel. Now shifting our focus to agricultural commodities, cocoa is currently being traded at 3,439.01 British pounds per ton, and wheat is priced at $254.81 US per ton. And that concludes the news. I am Olaoluwa Awe. Coming up next, a valuable analysis for your business endeavors. Stay tuned for the thought-provoking discussions and expert insights. Welcome back to Business Insights. My name is Olaoluwa Awe and this is Souk News. I am now joined by two of our in-house analysts who are here to help us make better sense of the developments in the business world. I'm talking about Mr. Lateef Jamiu. Welcome to Business Insights. Mr. Lateef Jimoh, Mr. Lateef Jimoh. Yes, and let's talk about Ahmed Jayola. Welcome once again. You look pretty tough, you know. Let's ease the tension. Let's smile a bit. I understand that the current economic realities are, they could be quite frightening for a good number of people. I mean, let's check out what's happening in the Nigerian Stock Exchange. I think there's been a downward movement of things in the Nigerian Stock Exchange. According to the report read earlier, there was a decrease of 31% in the number of shares traded, an 18% decrease in the overall value of the trades, and a 26% decrease in the number of transactions. As a matter of fact, out of the 116 companies, listed on the NGX, 19 of them saw their share prices increase, just 19, while about 57 companies experienced a decrease in their share prices. What could be responsible for this?
Thank you for having me once again. You see, the way the market works, although the bourse closed at a very negative yesterday, but there's nothing we can do about that. I see part of the sentiment of the market. There's a sell-off. I told you the profit taking is still going on, and the portfolio is having to be rebalanced. And if you look at what happened yesterday, you can see the financial sector, the worst 8, all of them are in the red yesterday, except for the industrial good that has like Dangote Sugar and Nascon and all that, because there is this news that comes to the market. Maybe that was a reaction towards that particular shares, because we have the news that they are going to match Dangote Cement and Dangote Sugar and Nascon. There's a news that they're merging, and this could portend a very good landscape for the Dangote, and then the other one, Dangote Rice Mill is coming to the market too. So this could be accountable for the thing that accounted for the increase in the share price, because these are the things, these are the sentiment in the market you cannot rule out. People are looking for where they'll make money, and that is one of the factors.
But what we witnessed here is an overall decrease. Like, very few companies saw an increase, and I understand that in the last few weeks there was an increase, like a confidence by investors in the stocks market because of the pronouncements made by the president of Nigeria, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But now that we are looking at a decrease, what do you really think is going on?
You can't say a decrease, because you have to look at YTD, the year to date. The year to date is still 20.73. And if you look at the market yet, I mean, in terms of the volume, I think UBA led the volume, the volume chart, while the JITCO led the value chart. We have to look at the volume and the value itself. So if you look at the value stock itself, what are those we are talking about? Talking about the big wind. So you look at the market is not the way you think. If for the fact that it's swing doesn't mean that the market is not good. You understand? People are reacting to the market until you see the YTD or the year to date becoming a negative or going down. Then you can say, there's a problem coming to the market. For now, I don't see any problem.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Ahmed, let's talk about the recent acquisition of shares in First Bank of Nigeria by an entity associated with Obao Otudeco. It has sparked a power struggle among major shareholders of the companies. And Otudeco's acquisition of a 13.3% stake in the bank has made him the largest equity holders, causing concern among other shareholders who fear he will seek to enthrone a board representative of shareholder interest rather than that of the suspended governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele. It's been in the news, for a while, but a good number of First Bank customers want to know what this means for them. It looks like power is changing hands. But meanwhile, according to reports, this is the background to the story. The former board of First Bank was sacked by Godwin Emefiele, after refusing to extend the tenure of CEO Adesola Adedoton for an unusual third term. Meanwhile, First Bank, according to reports, really did well in terms of servicing loans, profits under Adesola Adedoton. But what do you think is going on here, and how do you think First Bank customers should react to all of this?
Okay, so the challenge we observers have is in a lot of ways determining or saying that this is exactly what is happening at the back end. It's quite difficult because it's a power play that has been coming for years, right? You do know that First Bank is one of the most viable companies to own in Nigeria, if you do own it. Okay, when First Bank went, on the stock exchange, it was a jubilation thing. It's not. Do you understand? It was celebrated. Why? Because they had the pedigree. They had the history coming for them, the attachment to the colonial powers and so on and so forth. But the management of First Bank, the profitability of First Bank, the efficiency of their the way they've supported businesses and so on and so forth, it's been there for years, and it was obvious that someone was going to try this. If it is not Emefiele, if it is not Otudeko, it will be somebody in the board. Why? Because whoever it is that is able to own controlling shares in that company has a lot of money to play with. As a matter of fact, I am also, some years ago, there was I don't want to call it a cover-up because it actually it's spilled in the news. Many years ago when, I don't remember who amongst the board members was that took a loan against,
Machilunga?
I think so. So, that is how assured they are, like the bank can't fail. It's not a negotiation. So whoever it is that is owning it, it's almost like the person owns the Federal Reserve, because First Bank is like a supervisory bank to a lot of other banks. You understand? Just like Wema Bank is a signatory on stock dividends that go out in some to some banks. First Bank has such a position. So it's a given. It's almost like saying you're wondering what is happening. Why would Microsoft want to buy some other big company? Of course, it's money they are talking about here. Everyone is looking for more money. So coming back to the customers really don't have anything to panic about, because you're not going to have a case of what's the name of this bank in America that liquidated some time ago? The one
a very celebrated case anyway.
Yes. I'm trying to remember the name of that location. It is
SBV.
The SBV.
Silicon Valley Bank.
Thank you very much. First Bank is not like that. First Bank has processes. First Bank has checks, balances, so many processes that they use to guard against things like what happened to SPV. So it's not something that customers need to be afraid of. It's just a stock exchange power play. And money,
money power play.
I know he has something at the back of his mind.
No.
Let's talk about this concern amongst shareholders.
Let me click it. We're not talking about customers, we're talking about shareholders here.
Yeah.
And what this portends to them. Let me start from the analytics of the shareholding in the First Bank. The analysis that the First Bank took to go to the Fitch rating, all those ratings, international ratings, they're one of the viable bank, like he said, yes, that you can invest and then think and go and sleep that your money will. So because of the capital base, in terms of the risk analysis and all those things, they are there. And they have enough reserve to withstand any shock. So these are the issues that we need to look at in terms of analytics. So looking at the Dudecor shareholding through Barbican Limited, I think Barbican is owned by his children, if I recall. So it's not really because they have a lot of shares in the Honeywell. The big Honeywell is still one that owns but rather Honeywell is being sold to Flour Mills. Is it a Mercedes behind that will still coming? There are issues with EcoBank issue that they borrow money from EcoBank.
These were issues raised by shareholders.
I'm talking. These are the issues that somebody look at. Okay, what does it portend for me if this thing? But actually, they don't have anything. The worst thing is that the shareholding will be sold, to pay back the
customers, yeah.
So meanwhile, what will happen that EcoBank will be co-shares in the HBN,
Exactly.
which is a problem. The problem in the sense that they are in the same sector. EcoBank owning a lion shiners is a very serious problem.
Yes.
For the analysts who understand the power play. No, I told about the takeover. There's different kind of funny takeovers. Look at the messy deal between Otedola and Elumelu of this world. You know, they have been fought because I told somebody can just sit down and look at mapping your share. You will not know. You just come on the board one day and say, okay, I become the shareholder. I become the controlling shareholder.
And I think this has a lot to also to do with decision making, because it is believed that whoever has a controlling shares has the power to make certain decisions. For example, we're talking about when Godwin Emefiele at some point, sacked, the former CEO and replaced him with replaced the person with Adesola Adeduton. When they said Godwin Emefiele refused to extend the tenure of former CEO, the CEO Adesola Adeduton, for an unusual third term. So, do you think these are actually really valid reasons to be worried? Like, whoever it is who has the controlling shares now can dictate certain things, can influence certain things, and we should really be concerned about the decisions that can come from someone like this, the kind of decisions that can come from someone like this having the controlling share.
Boss Kwabu is being and it always be. There is nothing to fear. Like, for instance, now the issue of Emefiele and other whether to sack depends on the share. No, we have control issue. We have significant influence in terms of associate. So it depends on the shares and how many of the co-share you can take to your side in decision making. No, that is you don't like a politics. You need to really get numbers to be on your side. If the numbers raise their hand during the board meeting or whatever, it's not about if Emefiele controls. For the fact that I control the volume of the share, but he can't single-handedly say he wants to do something because corporate governance is there. It has to be a vote by vote through the maybe annual general meeting or whatever. So if by annual general, there's a decision that said, okay, go by everybody vote and either by proxy or whatever, he has the highest vote. There's nothing they can do. It's not about individual alone because corporate governance is there to guide on whether, to me personally, I don't see any, like I said, the board squabble, the board problem has been and always been. It's a big power play.
But when things like
sorry. Let me quickly chip something in.
Okay.
So there's a difference between shareholding and banking operations.
Exactly.
All right. What you are talking about is banking operations. How does it affect the customer? How does it affect those that have their money in the bank?
What I was talking about earlier, yes.
Yes, right? The issue is it's not going to affect that. Right? As long as salaries are getting paid, as long as the bills are getting paid, as long as the processes are still in place, whatever power squabbles are going on up there can continue going on.
But some people also believe it affects things like who is the CEO. For example, I know that this shareholders, they also make suggestions as to how the banks
will run. Yes.
And so they have like certain things they put in place now, existing. If someone else comes in with the controlling share, they also worry that the person can mop up.
But like he said,
let me quickly.
Change certain positions, change certain decisions.
Okay, like he said, okay, there is controlling shares. Do you understand? But it is still subject to vote. All because you have controlling shares does not mean your word is law.
But you can influence.
You can influence.
Exactly.
Let me be a bit deviate from the point that whether the banking activity is different from the share. We cannot really completely divorce the two, because let me tell you something: the significant decision being made by the board can affect the operations.
True.
So what I'm saying here is that. If, like for instance, talk about one time when Machilunga used a loan for certain things, he has to be sacrificed, a sacrificial lamb. He was the MD then. We have people like this blessed memory. Well, this man, former Minister of Finance, is from Abeokuta, Egba. I've forgotten his name, but I know he's a very powerful person in Egba land then. He was former Minister Dun Babangida, if you can still recall the person. But what I said is that he made some decisions that affected the company adversely. And I know it wasn't the one. He has to do it in consonance with the board. It can't take, even the MD, there's some level of decision you take. You can't say because I'm MD, I can't. So because when you get to some decision, you have to go through some, to the board. The board will approve it. But for the fact that that business this faced seriously, and it affected the company financially. In fact, it was a very serious one. I remember in 2003 or 4, 5, I can't remember, but I know that was a very serious issue in the First Bank then. So
up to 2015, 2016, you know, things started taking.
You know, that's what I said. Whatever decision being made at the top, they can affect the banking operation in terms of the volume and quantum of the operation that you're doing. If you misdirect the fund to non-viable project, it's going to affect the company.
And I think that is one of the reasons for the worry now. You know, some of the shareholders feel that things are pretty going well for First Bank right now. You know, do we want somebody to totally take us to another destination?
No. Let me tell you something. Yeah. You know, you can't, except you have a good background of who is manning the operational head. For instance, the MD. The MD is still the custodian. I mean, somebody that still strategically position the company. Although the board had a say, if when you have a strategy to move the company, you know, in every company we have strategical, we have tactical, we have whatever. So if at that strategical position, there's a decision that has been made. Because any decision that has been made, that place can run the company down or can make the company goes up.
And you also made a point saying that sometimes it's not just all about the person with the controlling shares. It's also still about the other shareholders, because whatever it is that he wants, it still needs to influence them. So is this the point? Is this you telling these shareholders that, well, regardless of who has the controlling share now, sometimes on key issues that you are pretty confident about, stand your ground, you know, because a good, you know, is that the message? It
doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. The shareholders, after what they can put in their pocket sometimes, mind you. That's why, you know, that I said the board is not a play that, because any decision that make at that realm of activity is going to be affected company. So the shareholders that have been, you have to buy them over. It's not done by talking.
To pay some money.
It may not be money. I'm not saying money. I'm not from my mouth, but I'm saying that if you see what is happening in the boardroom, you laugh. So you reinfluence the shout and let them see the reason why the decision should be voted for. Should understand. It's not that I said the corporate governance allows something. Even the board cannot single-handedly say this. They have to go with allow it both. Even somebody that has a very low share in that company needs to vote. Yes. But in Nigeria, I don't think that.
Not only, well, okay, so
hold your thought then. Let's go on a short break.
Okay.
This is Business Insights on SUD News. We go on a short break now. We'll be back to talk about this takeover and more.
Are we breaking?
Welcome back to Business Insights on SUD News, and we are still here. I'm Olaoluwa, where he is Mr. Lateef Jimoh, and of course he is, you know, talk about yourself. You know. Okay. So I was just trying to.
That happens when you discuss talk too much.
Now let's have your concluding word on the take the First Bank takeover by Oba Otudepo? Before we move into
Okay,
the
so so some years ago in Etisalat, okay, the board members took some decisions that were tantamount to the end of the company called Etisalat in Nigeria. Now, the likelihood that such a thing is going to happen in the banking sector in Nigeria is quite low, because there are some companies that are called too big to fail. First Bank falls in that category. So, as much as that seemingly puts First Bank in a protected category, it still doesn't mean that, how do I put it now, that certain decisions that are taken by the board of directors cannot necessarily affect the running of the company or the money, that is in the account and all that. But because the bank is a bit too big to fail, the likelihood that the government is going to step in is very high.
All right, let's talk about this new report on fraud and forgeries in the Nigerian banking system. It shows that fraudulent activities in our banks has reduced to an extent. We recorded a loss of 472 million naira during the first quarter of 2023, and this is an 85% loss reduction compared to what we experienced or what we lost in 2022, which is about 3.18 billion naira. And I broke this down in the news update I gave earlier. How different, but how do you react to this? Really, first thing first, from losing 3.18 billion naira to fraudulent activities to losing just about 472 million naira. Do you think our banks deserve a round of applause?
Well, yes. We all pray for such days where we can have much more confidence in our banks and in the fact that the money that we put in the banks are safe. However, who audited? Do you understand?
Do you beg to differ?
I beg to differ. It's not the audit. Let me tell you something. Because I'm an accountant, I'm an auditor. The auditors are not even the issue here. We can't rule out the activity of the regulatory
Okay.
I remember Financial Reporting Council, and there's a minimum reporting standard you should use. Both, like for instance, in the bank, there's an obligor limit. You can't just raise any money and say you want to give to any loan. Before, all this were done. But there's this corporate governance. There's this, even the CBN Act, CBN Act itself, the prudential guideline, the prudential guideline that actually guides the transaction you can invest in. You can't just say, wake up today and tell you, there must be some certain things you must do. So hold it. Let me remind you, when we talk of the fraudulent activities, are you talking of internal or external? Those are the things, because I can remember you saying POS operator, which are not internal to the banking, they are external to the banking, although they are being manned by the bank, whatever. But all the same, and thanks to the advent or increase in this artificial intelligence that allows, for instance, all these blockchain technologies in terms of encryption, there are a lot of things that has come into the banking system now that it's not going to be easy for you to even fraud. I remember, I recall it sometimes, even if the way the fraud were done, I remember in the days of STB, when we were very young, there are a lot of, you can see anybody can do. But now, because the artificial intelligence, the IT, the technology has been there, that you can't even move into mine, because my system is encrypted, to me only. So it's not easy that even if there's a collaboration, will there be management fraud? Because there's no single fraud that happens in those kind of institutions. It has to be with the knowledge of somebody higher, because there are controls.
Exactly. Now, let's quickly chip this in. There's a report that Nigeria's Stanbic IBTC has been fined about 120 million naira over electronic funds transfer breaches. in a landmark ruling by the Competition and Consumer Protection Tribunal. You mentioned the role of regulators here, and that's why I had to bring that in. Now, Mr. Shola Shalapo Ajulo, the member representing Southwest in the tribunal, ruled in a 2-hour majority decision that Stanbic IBTC Bank contravened Section 130, subsection 1A of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act of 2018. And Damlola Oshungade, the CCPT communications officer, mentioned this in a post-decision statement made available. Stanbic IBTC was fined after the bank was found to have failed to complete an NIBSS instant payment transfer request and withheld the consumer's funds beyond the 10-minute reversal regulation for failed NIBSS instant payment electronic funds transfer. Do you think we're moving forward here?
That's why no, look at NIBSS, the Nigerian Interbank, whatever. But because even if you want to make transactions, it has to go through Nigerian Interbank system. So this is another way of monitoring. You know, I told you, the wait is you can't, even if you go away, it will, maybe during the audit, they can still resurface, and they can revisit that case to make sure what happened there. Do you follow the due process? If not, this is what happened in this time. So you can see somebody has done something, and later the court is ruling on it.
So there comes the question, because that is where my pain point is coming from.
Yeah.
There are a lot of fraudulent activities that are not reported. If we are not public about certain things, at least I have an idea that there are some ATM activities that happened recently that became a huge issue, all right, but were discussed in private quarters and was never in the news, was not reported anywhere.
To the bank?
It was discussed by the bank. It happened. It happened within the bank, right? But because of the volume and the potential effect that it would have, the bank needed to have the conversation amongst themselves, and it was not revealed anywhere else. That now brought the question, okay, so how do we really know what is? That's why I said, who is auditing? Because when these monies go out, there are monies that come through. Someone tries to do a transfer, the transfer did not get there, and it was not returned.
Okay, because of time, let me quickly just one or two. Yeah. No, there's something we call materiality in accounting. If the auditor comes, even if he had audited it, and he found out that that is not really material to the transaction, they may just report it for the board in the financial statement. And mind you, you mentioned auditor. Auditors are not a blood wound. They are just to back.
Okay.
Auditors are not meant to. Mine is to give you, okay, I've audited your account, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, then that is why, because when you are reading the financial statement, always read somebody that has knowledge. Because auditors have had a clause, we call it a kind of qualification that.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Lateef Jimoh and Mr. Ahmed Jariola. But I think largely, as we round this up, this also brings to fore the role of the consumers in this, people using the bank. If there was an ATM issue and it involves your money, even if the bank decides to, just hush it somewhere in the bank, you can
escalate it.
Yes. And that's why we have these regulatory agencies. And as long as a good amount of people think it's a lot of work to follow through, these transactions. But for those who have been resilient, for those who have been consistent, for those who have dedicated their time and energy to this, a good number of people are seeing, a positive end, a positive result in maybe getting their monies back or getting these businesses, the banks, reprimanded for whatever it is that they have done wrong. But on that note, we bring to an end Business Insight Unsickness. Thank you very much, gentlemen, once again.
Thank you.
I am Olaoluwa Awe, and that's how we wrap things up for the week. On Monday, we'll continue 10 o'clock to 11 on Sick News. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms. Bye for now.
Can we talk?
Yes.
Balance analysis.
It was balanced, have you?
what I'm talking